Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Barr and here with another episode of the Cloud UC podcast. And today it's time to evolve and have a conversation about money. This individual evaluates which companies are getting bought and what features are getting funded and who gets left behind. So a big welcome to Gerry Dehaven of Q Advisors. Gerry, why don't you give us a little intro about your journey and why you're exactly the person that we want to talk to today?
Well, hi, Sarah. Nice to be with you. My name's Gerry Dehaven. I'm a partner at Q Advisors, where I have been now for going on 17 years. Spend most of our time in the rapidly evolving cloud communications, MSP, and digital infrastructure space. I've been in investment banking now for 21 years. First half of my career, I was an operator. So I did four startups in telecom services and network services in the New York and New Jersey area. So I've got a unique purview. I've been on both sides of the table many times in my life. It's our job to understand all the different product and technology trends that are impacting the space in general and obviously more specifically our clients.
Just to kind of help us understand more about, your career arc, which is great. That's so amazing to hear about the, experience with four different startups that you've been a part of. But what type of companies are you and Q Advisors working with now? What are the scale of some of the deals that you're a part of and just market exposure in general?
I'd say about 70% of what we do is sell side. So we're helping our clients go to market and running a competitive process. And on average, our enterprise values of our clients are in the probably the sweet spot is in the 150 to $250 million range. We'll be announcing another deal in a few weeks for Call Tower, who is very active, like New Wave in the Teams and Cisco in Zoom space. Historically, I think cloud communications was a primary focus for the firm. But it's evolved over the last few years. I think we do as much in IT services or MSPs as we do the cloud comms, but even those two models are starting to merge. And we also spend a lot of time in Europe because we have an office in Munich, and we've seen a lot of opportunity, and there's a bit of a land grab happening in certain countries in Europe, and we tend to follow that activity.
Off the top, what are patterns that you're seeing in the market right now that most of us inside the industry don't notice? And I know that's a big question to start with, and there's a lot, but let's just kind of get people's feet warm.
Well, I mean, the biggest trend is all things AI, not just for, cloud communications, but, really every industry. And there's been a big shift away from what have become highly commoditized services like UCaaS and a real shift towards, I guess, what we would label intelligent differentiation. And AI is a very powerful tool, not only for companies to help improve back office efficiencies, but to create new lines of revenue. And AI is allowing new business insights with raw data they've had forever. Voice is data. Applying AI to all these different capabilities fundamentally reshapes strategies in UCaaS, CPaaS, CCaaS, and just broader CX delivery.
Such a good way to look at voice and the way that you can break it down to actually analyze it and make it impactful data. From where you sit, is the capital actually flowing and you see towards AI primarily?
Service providers aren't yet monetizing it meaningfully. I just saw a study that said only about 20% of enterprises through the end of 24, I think, that deployed AI, and it'll rise to like 85 or 90% over the next couple of years, I think by the end of 27. Perhaps not so much demonstrable revenue, but a clear defensible strategy, a team that with a proven experience in terms of deploying new technologies, and obviously a customer base that is going to utilize the new technologies. As meaningful as new revenue opportunities are also the opportunity to create efficiencies in your back office, whether that's in your tier one support or knock or other parts of the the back office ecosystem where, we think AI is going to drive more efficiencies and ultimately help companies create more profitability as they go.
Before we jump from the money flow conversation, one question I have for you is where do you see money flow kind of being pulled back away from? Really, where is it pulling back?
UCaaS as a standalone business model is kind of DOA these days. There's just not a lot of interest in it. Somebody may be interested in buying it, but the value of that business is not going to be anywhere near a business that has productized around three, four, six different platforms, can show success in selling into their customer base, have customers that are buying an average of three or four more services, which is ultimately creating a stickier mousetrap. I think the pullback is from businesses that are perhaps a little too single threaded, and with too much reliance on, maybe one or two vendors, and have some real question around the scalability of the business in its current state going forward.
If UCAS isn't compelling on its own anymore, what types of things, in terms of features, expectations, forms of collaboration and communication, need to be layered on top in order for partners to, continue to have strategic value?
It's a new world order, right? The new competitive moat isn't about, making sure you've got all the UCaaS functionality or the biggest network footprint or the lowest prices. It's really about having speed and efficiency with which you can apply AI to your product set and customer data. Features like improving call experiences, in terms of like real-time translation or smart IVR, or using data to provide business insights that your customers haven't have, and that can be conversational analytics, which, one example, just improved sales efforts and sales coaching is one small example. But every voice interaction carries the ability to find intelligence within the data that that call establishes. And obviously the cloud remains mission critical, scalability, security, and AI are all driving investment.
My question for you is are we seeing, MSP is still important, but are we seeing that model evolve into something more broader than it really used to be? And should that be happening?
We've done a number of deals in the space with MSPs where they do provide network services, but tend historically to shy away from voice. It is a different, historically a different support system and back office that goes with voice. But I think we're going to see that shift, particularly with larger companies with scale. Call Tower is a good example. Call Tower is a managed service provider, but of cloud communication services. Other IT MSPs shy away from that, but we've had plenty of conversations with very large PE firms who have an investment thesis around the IT and the cloud comms model coming together, because ultimately, if you've got the pipe, you've essentially got the Trojan horse, I mean the broadband, to layer on IT and cloud communication services. It is more often than not the same decision tree within the organization, the folks who are making the decision on who the vendors are. Not all companies want a single throat to choke, or maybe better said, a single back to pat. But we think that's going to happen over time, and we'll see more MSPs start to layer in network services. And I also think as Microsoft Teams has just become so embedded across the enterprise ecosystem that it's going to get harder not to integrate voice, or Teams enabled voice, for example, as part of a broader IT product strategy.
This will be kind of a larger question, and you can answer it in a holistic way. But what are they measuring? What makes a company just immediately attractive for acquisition, and what makes investors hesitate?
The first part is what pain point are they solving? Are they growing? Are they profitable? Who are their target customers? So today, there's a lot more value, I think, or interest in companies that are serving the mid-market and enterprise space. The ability to do that globally is really critical, particularly if we're in the US, if you're a US based service provider and you're serving the mid market and enterprise, you've got to have a European footprint, or you've got to have the capability to serve Europe, where adoption rates tend to lag behind the US in most countries, but we've seen a pretty big pickup in markets like Germany over the last year or two, and why so many companies are focused there. You've got to have a go-to-market strategy that you can point to having had success with, and that can be a direct model, that can be a channel model. The white label model is getting a lot of traction, particularly as we talked about MSPs who have recurring IT customer relationships, but they just generally don't have the DNA to roll out a sophisticated UCaaS, CCaaS, or broader cloud comms, but they've got the customers. And I think that's also in part why New Wave is so appealing, because you allow those folks to not have to reinvent themselves entirely. The scalability, not just of your systems, but of your people too. What's the management team? It's a skill set to go from 0 to 50 million. It's not always the same folks who can go from 50 to 500 million. And a lot of private equity uh, sponsors will spend a lot of time evaluating the management team, and sometimes have people in the wings that they've backed before that they can bring in and to plug perceived weaknesses in the organization.
Mm. Yeah.
So conversely, if you've got some weak spots in your management team, that's a red flag. Not having the financial reporting infrastructure that your peers do. We're shocked at times at how little some larger companies spend on their finance departments, but having a buttoned up finance group, having audited financials, making sure you are in compliance from a tax perspective, because it gets a ton of scrutiny, and nothing kills deals more than finding out that folks are not paying, not collecting, or remitting the right USF dollars associated with all the different jurisdictions in the US. So those are things that get a lot of attention, as does attrition, or what is the net retention? Are you keeping 100+% of your customers, or have you had meaningful churn? Do you have big customers who are at the end of a contract, but you're not sure if they're going to renew? And then also having high CapEx requirements, which is again something that New Wave helps mitigate. But a lot of companies report EBITDA, but there's a real focus on cash flow versus EBITDA. So investors shy away from high CapEx requirements over the forecast period that we're working with.
So you're saying that the predictable cash flow is becoming more important than just the aggressive growth, because aggressive growth may not signify that you can maintain that growth?
5, 6 years ago, companies like Ring Central and 8x8 and Bandwidth and Vonage and others that were trading at 10 to 20 times revenue. Those days are gone. It's a real focus on profitability, and having solved for the balance between growth and profitability. Now, I'm not addressing the product mix, but obviously making sure you've got a product suite that is aligned with what the market demand will be over the next 3 to 5 years. And then we get back to all things AI.
Just, I think, last point on AI for our partners is to start thinking about it now. It's okay if you haven't yet or you haven't quite figured it out, but it is time, and you will be ahead of the curve in general. Would you agree?
Perhaps certain industries that are going to drive adoption faster. I think financial services is one, and there are lots of elements to that. I think healthcare and automotive and logistics is an example, or others. But as a service provider in the cloud comms or managed IT space, having a very clear AI strategy is just, it's not optional. It's not that anybody's terribly behind the eight ball right now, but if you're not in learning mode and adoption mode here very soon, then you're going to get left behind.
Do you have any examples from some organizations that you worked with just had it so dialed in? And, this is more of an HR question, but did you see or find anything unique in how they were working and how they were supporting their employees?
One barometer for us, and I think investors, is just the tenure of the management team, what their experiences were before they came together, how long they've been operating together, and just the general culture of the business. Some of these awards you can spend enough ad dollars and automatically get called a great place to work, but others are earned. And I think, having that commitment to employee enrichment, growth, education, doing fun things outside of work, being involved in the community, having people that are in a senior role today that may have started early, all just demonstrate organizational health and things that really resonate with prospective buyers and investors. For private equity firms, and I'd say you know at least half of our sell side mandates today are companies that are being acquired by private equity firms, and that ultimately means they're investing in the management team to shepherd that investment over the next 3 to 5 years for them. The team and the culture of the business is important, and having a technology roadmap that aligns with market forecasts around adoption is a big part of what ultimately a team decides and brings to market.
Not just thinking from a billing perspective, but when you made a comment about it's kind of a land grab right now, can you just talk about what that means?
The UK is a little ahead of the European continent. Netherlands is probably a little more advanced, but you look at the largest economy in Europe, which is Germany. Adoption of cloud communication services from somebody other than the incumbent phone company is, I think it's still maybe it's around 10% right now. There's a huge opportunity as German companies start to converge. It's a different go to market, but the other thing that we see too is that the go to market model in Europe historically has been either direct sales organization or you're doing wholesale or resale. The American channel model is one that we are starting to see take hold there. There's some education to do. There's some regionalization. Germany tends to be pretty regional depending on what part of the country you're in. But I think you're going to start to see the TSDs in the U.S. start to find a pretty fertile group of new sub agents or channel partners there that are seeing the value in the channel model in the U.S. And that is something that if I'm investing in either a TSD or a channel partner now, I want to understand how my portfolio company is going to take advantage of that dynamic in Europe.
So, in terms of talking about these collaboration tools, when we're thinking, WebEx, Teams, Zoom, all of the big ones, is multi-UC capability becoming just a requirement rather than a differentiator at this point?
If you think about a typical global business that is also an acquiring business, they may set a standard for headquarters, but have lots of satellite offices they inherit through acquisitions that are, headquarters could be Teams and acquired satellite branches could be WebEx or Zoom or something else. I think it's not so much about the application as much as it is the what you're going to do with it going forward and be able to grow, as we said earlier, just this the intelligence around each of these different platforms. I think nobody's focused on, I only want to buy a WebEx platform, or I only want to invest in a business that's operator connect or direct routing. It's more about how you've put the pieces together, how you've rationalized the product strategy. And I think for some service providers, they're not, they take an approach where they want to be, particularly in the enterprise market, you want to be best of breed. You don't want to necessarily decide and limit your opportunities. But if you partner, for example, with Microsoft, WebEx, and Zoom, at least on the UCaaS side, you've partnered with what is probably 75+% of the market. The market shares may be a little different, but that best of breed approach works on the CCaaS side too. So the market leaders, Genesis, Five9, Nice, and even TalkDesk, I think are evolving their strategies to work more with and be better partners to service providers who really want to build that integrated best of breed product suite.
Verticalization and specialization, which are total buzzwords that I'm still just kind of getting used to, but they are becoming more important in how companies are being valued. Agreed?
I think it's almost a strategic necessity for companies to, at least to some extent, converge and verticalize. Every customer's got unique problems, needs. AI is going to help create vertical solutions and presumably solutions that, if you're providing to healthcare and you're developing a HIPAA guaranteed scribing solution, for example, well, that's something you can take to, a broader segment beyond the customer that maybe you had to develop it for. But the other thing I just want to get back to in terms of the multi-vendor thing is I
Yeah.
think there's an expectation to be able to support it, but I also think the new or evolving end user or customer expectation is to be able to do it within one environment, meaning, one platform. I don't want to have to sign on to, three different logins to figure out, my WebEx user requirements in Seattle and my team's user requirements or adds deletes in New York.
So what happens to, companies that are just focusing on one line of business or one UC platform and just kind of driving in the singular direction? Are they falling away, or do they have any sort of vantage point? Are they in trouble?
In some cases, they've got long-standing customer relationships, and look, not all customers are ambitious or evolving at the same rate as others. So in some cases, they can live with it for now, but if they plan to be in business in the next 3 to 5 years, there's just no way you can just be out reselling WebEx or Zoom or Teams or NetSapiens or fill in the blank for a UCaaS product, because customers are expecting a whole lot more.
Are there regulatory, financial, or just market pressures that most UC providers aren't paying attention to yet, but should be?
Most are probably aware. I mean, there's regulatory changes. California continues to find new and creative ways to make our job hard uh, and and also make transactions go a lot slower. They, in their infinite wisdom, decided to, even though the whole CLEC regulatory designation exists there, last year they came up with a new designation or two designations where you're either a nomadic voice provider or a fixed VoIP is the word, and that has actually material impact on M&A, because if you are fixed, you are going to be subject to the same regulatory approval and time as a traditional CLEC versus nomadic, which is just essentially a notification. So for guys like us, we sign definitive documents to do a deal, and we often find ourselves waiting 6, 9, sometimes even more months. And California is usually involved, part of the reason why. And then as you move internationally, you got to be very clear about each of the regulatory environments in countries you're providing services. So that's on the regulatory side. Have a clear strategy around go to market. Find your swim lane. So if you're really good at direct sales and you might be a little subscale, the channel provides diversity. I know everybody loves paying residual commissions at 15 to 20%, but it's success based, and having a multi-pronged channel or sales strategies important, and one that folks are going to want to see where there are opportunities to grow. Having the right product strategy for the customer segment you're chasing, having those international capabilities, and plugging holes organizationally as you go. Also, we always say start with the end in mind. So if you've got a plan to exit, merge, raise money in some period of time, then figure out all the things you need to do, generally a year or so before you do it, so that there aren't any surprises or perceived weaknesses in the business when you are starting to talk to prospective investors or buyers.
And thank you for helping us outline what those perceived weaknesses could be and what they should be paying attention to a year ahead of time, depending on the goal. I appreciate it because, again, the finances are not my territory. But heck, let's get acquired. I mean, it's fun to really figure out what we
We
can
didn't
do
talk too much
to.
about finances. We're just talking about, you know, strategy and products. I think intuitively most people in the space understand how important AI is. I'm not sure everybody understands how important a shift to recurring revenue versus reselling product or software with professional services. There is real interest from the investment community in technical human capital and monetizing that, but not as the lead engine of your business. The real opportunities for that, particularly as AI starts to take hold. I think a lot of enterprise and mid-market customers are going to rely on their vendors to help uh, deploy, learn, train, and continue to build upon it. And I think sometimes service providers forget that possibility or that revenue stream. So, we see kind of a renewed interest in that across both cloud comms and IT services.
This is going to sound a little silly, but can you define that? The term was technical human capital.
The channel has seen a number of been a fair amount of consolidation or new investment coming in. And I think one of the things that distinguishes certain channel partner or advisory firms from others is that they have brought in sales engineering or some level of technical support for sales opportunities, and they've layered in technology to help with the quoting and ultimately the entire customer life cycle. And so having the ability to bring in a technical consultant as part of a broader deployment that may be across multiple vendors because you're a channel partner, the ability to monetize and project management and technical consulting is something that we see getting some steam.
Essentially, we're just productizing every part of the business at all times, which can feel daunting, but also fun and innovative. But it does force, I think, an organization to have to skill up in so many more arenas outside of just communications and collaboration tools.
I saw a study recently. I forget who did it. I think it said like 73 or 4% of the global IT spend goes through the channel. The channel winners are the ones who, are well positioned with the right vendors and have the organization to, even though they're, essentially advising on other vendor solutions, it's not their name on the bill, their ability to be customer facing as frequently as possible is only enhanced by having this, having a technology and project management team to help those customers deploy that spend.
Thank you for just turning the light bulbs on for me and some things I haven't been thinking about. And for just giving a lens, from someone who really is just inside, seeing what the investors are seeing what they're running away from, and really what's most invaluable. Can you just share how folks and our audience can get in touch with you and where Q Advisors exists and lives?
So we're Q Advisors. We're based in Denver, Colorado, office in Munich, Germany, a few other folks spread around. Our website is qllc.com. And you can get me at Dehaven at qllc.com.
Well, thank you again, Gerry. I appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for coming in. And, head over to Q Advisors. If you've got questions, reach out to Gerry on LinkedIn. And other than that, I hope you have a good day. Thanks for your time, Gerry.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Enjoyed it.